Narcissism, with all its boldness and bravado, often wears a mask of power and confidence. But as time passes and life seasons change, that mask starts to crack. The very traits that once allowed a narcissist to dominate the room, command attention, and manipulate circumstances begin to fade. Aging doesn't spare anyone, not even the narcissist. And when those youthful advantages are stripped away, what's left is a soul wrestling with the reality they can no longer control. As they grow older, the narcissist's charm, a tool they've wielded masterfully for years, starts to lose its edge. The quick smile, the well-timed joke, the magnetic presence that used to draw people in may no longer have the same effect. The spotlight they so desperately crave begins to dim, and the applause they've lived for becomes sporadic, even silent. Beauty fades, strength weakens, and the world that once revolved around them starts to move on without their permission. This change can be terrifying for someone who's built their identity on external validation. The need to be admired doesn't fade with age. In fact, it often grows stronger as they feel their relevance slipping away. But instead of adapting gracefully, the narcissist often clings tighter to their old ways, trying to reclaim what time has taken. They might double down on their manipulation, grow louder in their demands, or act out in desperate attempts to prove they still matter. But the harder they try, the clearer it becomes to those around them. The charm has turned into desperation, and the confidence has morphed into insecurity. Aging forces all of us to look inward. But for a narcissist, that's the very thing they've avoided their entire lives. Their world has always been focused outward, on how others see them, on what they can take, on how they can control the narrative. But when their reflection no longer matches the image they projected, they're faced with a choice: confront the truth or retreat into denial. Many choose the latter, building walls of excuses and blaming others for the loneliness and emptiness they feel. But denial doesn't stop the passage of time. It doesn't restore youth. It doesn't heal the brokenness they've sown in their relationships. And yet, even in this reality, there is a lesson for all of us. Aging reveals the truth of what we've built our lives upon. For the narcissist, it exposes a foundation made of sand, one that crumbles under the weight of unmet expectations and unrealized dreams. But for those willing to learn, it's an invitation, a chance to stop chasing fleeting things and start investing in what truly matters. Aging may strip away the exterior, but it also holds the power to refine the soul. For the narcissist, the question remains: will they see the opportunity, or will they spend their twilight years clinging to a facade that no longer serves them? Time is an unstoppable force, moving forward, no concern for pride, position, or power. And as it moves, it reveals the truth about who we are and what we value. For the narcissist, time is an enemy, not a friend, because it exposes the very thing they fear most: irrelevance. The world that once seemed to revolve around them begins to shift, and suddenly, they're no longer the center of attention. That spotlight they've chased their entire lives starts to fade, and with it goes the illusion of control they work so hard to maintain. A narcissist thrives on significance, on being seen, admired, and celebrated. But as they age, the natural progression of life introduces a challenge they cannot manipulate or outrun. Their influence may dwindle as younger generations step forward. Their appearance may change as the years take their toll, and the admiration they once commanded so effortlessly may be harder to come by. For a person whose identity is built on these external factors, the loss of them feels like a personal attack. It's not just the passing of time, it's the stripping away of their carefully constructed image. When faced with this loss of relevance, many narcissists lash out. They may grow bitter, resentful, and even more demanding of attention, trying desperately to reclaim what they perceive as rightfully theirs. They may find themselves competing with younger colleagues, family members, or even strangers, attempting to prove they still matter. But no matter how hard they try, they're fighting a battle they cannot win, because it's not about the external world, it's about the internal void they've avoided addressing for so long. As the years pass, their once powerful voice may become an echo in an empty room. The crowd they work so hard to please may have moved on, leaving them searching for someone, anyone, to validate their worth. And in that search, they often alienate the very people who might have offered them genuine connection. The constant need for recognition, coupled with an inability to adapt to the natural changes of life, creates a cycle of frustration and isolation. They demand more, but they receive less, and the gap between who they think they are and how others see them grows wider with every passing year. But here's the truth: aging doesn't have to be a curse. It can be a gift. It can be a time of reflection, a chance to let go of the need for approval and embrace the deeper, quieter values that bring lasting peace. Yet for the narcissist, this requires a kind of humility they've spent their lives avoiding. To face irrelevance it's a painful process, but it's also an opportunity, a crossroads, where they can choose to either cling to the past or step into a new, more authentic future. The question is, will they embrace it or will they resist, allowing bitterness to define their remaining years? Time will tell, but the choice is always there. Relationships are the currency of life. They are what we lean on in moments of need, the foundation we stand on when everything else feels uncertain. But for the narcissist, relationships have often been tools, things to use, manipulate, and control rather than nurture. When you live a life where others exist only to validate your worth, you sow seeds of resentment, distrust, and pain. And as the years roll by, those seeds bear fruit, often leaving the aging narcissist surrounded not by love, but by distance, not by loyalty, but by broken connections. For a narcissist, the cracks in their relationships are often slow to form, but devastating when they appear. Those who have endured their selfishness, manipulation, and constant demands for attention may start to pull away. Children grow tired of seeking approval that never comes. Partners grow weary from the one-sidedness of the relationship. Friends and colleagues, once drawn in by the narcissist's charm, eventually recognize the cost of staying close. And as the narcissist grows older, they find themselves increasingly isolated, surrounded not by the adoration they crave, but by silence. What makes this reality even more painful is the narcissist's inability or unwillingness to understand their role in the breakdown of these connections. They often see themselves as victims, blaming others for the estrangement, unable to see how their behavior has driven people away. Their pride won't let them acknowledge the harm they've caused, and their need to be right outweighs the possibility of reconciliation. So instead of reaching out in humility, they retreat into bitterness, accusing others of betrayal while refusing to confront the truth. And yet, even in their isolation, the narcissist's need for control doesn't fade. They may try to reassert their dominance over the relationships that remain, using guilt, manipulation, or even financial leverage to keep people close. But these tactics only push others further away, deepening the loneliness they already feel. What they fail to realize is that true connection cannot be forced. It must be earned through love, trust, and mutual respect. Qualities they've often neglected in their pursuit of power and validation. This cycle of broken relationships leaves the aging narcissist in a painful paradox. They crave connection but reject the vulnerability needed to build it. They long for love but are unwilling to give it unconditionally. They desire loyalty but refuse to acknowledge the betrayal they've inflicted on others. And as they sit in the ruins of their relational world, they are forced to confront a hard truth. The love they seek cannot be demanded. It must be cultivated. For those who have been hurt by the narcissist, there is a decision to be made. Do you hold on to the pain, or do you find a way to forgive, not for their sake, but for yours? And for the narcissist, there is also a choice. Will they continue to cling to pride and blame, or will they take the difficult step of humility, acknowledging their mistakes and seeking genuine reconciliation? The path forward is never easy, but it is always possible. The question is, are they willing to take it? Aging has a way of leveling the playing field. It strips away the facades we once leaned on, exposing vulnerabilities we can no longer hide. For the narcissist, this is a terrifying reality. They've built their lives on a foundation of control, dominance, and self-sufficiency, refusing to show weakness or admit need. But as the years roll on, health begins to decline, strength starts to fade, and the independence they've prided themselves on becomes harder to maintain. Aging doesn't just affect the body, it reveals the fragility of the soul. For someone who has spent their life refusing to depend on others, the inevitable vulnerabilities of aging can feel like a betrayal. Illness, physical limitations, or even the simple inability to keep up with life's demands become constant reminders that they are no longer invincible. The narcissist may fight against this reality, pushing themselves to maintain a facade of power and capability, but the effort often comes at a great cost. Instead of embracing the help and support that aging naturally requires, they resist it, seeing dependence as a weakness rather than a part of the human experience. This resistance often creates tension in their relationships. Family members or caregivers who attempt to offer assistance may find themselves met with anger, frustration, or outright rejection. The narcissist may lash out, accusing others of overstepping boundaries or undermining their autonomy, all while struggling silently with the very vulnerabilities they refuse to acknowledge. This refusal to accept help doesn't just strain relationships, it isolates them further, leaving them to face the challenges of aging alone. But beyond the physical and relational struggles, there's a deeper battle at play. The narcissist's identity has been tied to their ability to control and command. As health and strength fade, so does their sense of self. They may experience feelings of fear, helplessness, and even shame, but rather than confront these emotions, they bury them beneath layers of defensiveness and denial. They put on a brave face, but beneath the surface they are grappling with the loss of the very things that once defined them. And yet, even in this vulnerable state, there is an opportunity for transformation. Aging offers a chance to reframe the narrative, to let go of the need for control and embrace the beauty of interdependence. It's an invitation to experience relationships not as a means to an end, but as a source of genuine connection and mutual care. Vulnerability, when embraced, can become a bridge to healing, both for the narcissist and for those they've hurt along the way. The challenge, however, lies in their willingness to embrace this change. Will they see their vulnerability as a pathway to growth, or will they allow it to embitter them further? Will they open their hearts to the support and love of others, or will they cling to the illusion of independence, even as it slips from their grasp? The choice is theirs, but the clock keeps ticking and time waits for no one. Life has a way of leaving its fingerprints on us all, shaping who we are and what we leave behind. For the narcissist, however, the legacy they carry isn't always a reflection of love or gratitude, but one of emotional damage, a trail of broken hearts, strained relationships, and unhealed wounds. They may not fully grasp the extent of their impact, but the truth is that the way they've treated others has left scars that don't fade easily. Years of manipulation, control, and self-centered behavior have a cumulative effect on those closest to them. Children who grew up yearning for affection or approval often carry the weight of unmet needs into their adult lives. Spouses who endured years of being diminished or dismissed find themselves struggling to rediscover their worth. Friends, colleagues, and extended family who were drawn into the narcissist's orbit often leave with stories of betrayal or disappointment. These aren't just isolated incidents. They are patterns that span decades, creating a legacy not of unity but of division. And as the narcissist ages, they're confronted with this reality in ways they can no longer avoid. The people they once relied on to feed their ego may no longer be willing to stick around. Resentment and exhaustion can lead to distance, and the narcissist who once demanded loyalty finds themselves increasingly isolated. They may wonder why their children don't visit, why their friends have disappeared, or why their relationships feel shallow. But the answer lies in the seeds they've sown over the years. You cannot reap love where you have planted pain. What's especially tragic is that many narcissists struggle to take accountability for this legacy. Instead of reflecting on their actions, they double down on denial, blaming others for the broken relationships around them. They point fingers, accusing loved ones of being ungrateful or disloyal, refusing to acknowledge the role their own behavior played in driving people away. It's easier to rewrite the narrative than to face the truth. But in doing so, they miss an opportunity for healing, not just for themselves, but for those they've hurt. Even in the midst of this painful reality, there is still hope. Legacy doesn't have to be static. While the past cannot be undone, the present offers a chance to write a new story. The narcissist can choose humility over pride, reconciliation over blame, and love over control. But this requires a level of self-awareness and vulnerability that doesn't come naturally. It demands that they look beyond their own needs and acknowledge the humanity of those they've hurt. For those who've been impacted by the narcissist, healing is a journey of its own. It's about reclaiming power, finding peace, and choosing forgiveness. Not necessarily for the narcissist's sake, but for their own freedom. And for the narcissist, the question remains, will they use their remaining years to repair the damage they've done? Or will they continue to let pride and denial write the final chapters of their story? Time doesn't wait, and legacies, whether good or bad, have a way of outlasting us all. Life has a way of giving us opportunities for growth, even in the final chapters of our journey. For the narcissist, Aging may seem like a cruel teacher, stripping away their illusions of control, beauty, and power. Yet in that process lies the potential for something far greater. A chance to grow, to change, and to redeem the story they've written so far. It's not an easy path, but it's one that holds the possibility of transformation if they are willing to take it. The truth is, change is hard for anyone, but it's especially difficult for someone who has built their life on a foundation of pride, self-centeredness, and denial. Admitting fault, acknowledging the pain they've caused, and seeking to make amends can feel like an attack on their very identity. For decades, they may have relied on manipulation, control, or charm to navigate life, avoiding the vulnerability and humility that true growth requires. But aging has a way of removing those crutches, leaving them face to face with the truth of who they are. This confrontation can be painful, but it also creates a fork in the road. They can continue down the path of denial, clinging to old patterns that no longer serve them, or they can choose the harder, more rewarding path of self-reflection and change. And while many resist, some find that the loss of power and control brings a kind of clarity they've never known before. They begin to see the futility of chasing validation and the emptiness of relationships built on selfishness. In those moments, they are presented with the opportunity to break free from the chains of their past behavior. This is the moment where redemption begins. It starts with a simple but profound decision to stop running from the truth, to look in the mirror and see not just the image they projected to the world, but the person they've become. To acknowledge the pain they've caused and take responsibility for their actions. This isn't about dwelling in guilt. It's about finding freedom through accountability. It's about seeking forgiveness, not as a means to regain control, but as a genuine act of repentance. For those who care for the aging narcissist, this shift can be both unexpected and challenging. It requires discernment to recognize genuine change and the courage to offer grace while maintaining healthy boundaries. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, but it does mean leaving space for the possibility that even the most hardened hearts. The beauty of life is that as long as there is breath, there is hope. Even the most broken stories can find redemption, and even the most wounded relationships can experience healing. Aging may strip away the superficial, but it also reveals the eternal. It reminds us that what truly matters isn't how much power we held or how much admiration we received, but how we loved, how we gave, and how we made others feel. The narcissist has a choice to make. Will they cling to their pride until the very end, or will they embrace the opportunity to leave behind a legacy of growth, humility, and grace? The door is open, but only they can walk through it.